The ceasefire, which has now come into force in Lebanon after the 13-month conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, uh, the comes at such a cost. 3,823 dead, 1 million people displaced. But it shows Biden as a mediator in his final days as president. And his remarks about peace and humanitarian relief, these put him on a par, I suppose, with Jimmy Carter, for good and for ill. And the terms of the ceasefire, the problem with the ceasefire, and why I'm afraid I'm always opposed to people marching on the street calling for a ceasefire, is because it's a half-cock solution. A ceasefire as part of a peace deal is a great move forward. A ceasefire in anticipation of a peace deal is a great move forward. A ceasefire with no clear resolution is simply an opportunity for one side or the other to regroup and rearm. And it's a prolonging of a conflict that arguably should never have happened in the first place if the international community had been more supportive and more proactive. The Hezbollah, under the terms of this ceasefire, Hezbollah will move north of the Litani River while Israel withdraws from southern Lebanon, and the deployment of Lebanese army forces replaces Hezbollah's stronghold monitored by international actors. It's a 60-day truce brokered by the US and France. And if, as Biden suggests, this is a ceasefire that can be a step towards a Middle East peace, including the two-state solution, and his intention is to use this deal as a momentum towards the Gaza truce, and a peace deal for Gaza, well, he doesn't seem to have consulted the Gazans who look north with a sense of abandon. And Biden acknowledges the human suffering in Gaza while emphasizing Hamas's role in the conflict. In the same way as Hezbollah is weakened, with its key leaders killed, its infrastructure decimated. There are people in the Israeli government, the hawks in the Israeli government, are irritated by the ceasefire, thinking this is the opportunity to attack Iran. But maybe we should be grateful for small mercies. But the Gazans perceive this ceasefire as isolating it. It focuses solely on Lebanon, sidesteps their suffering, and the ongoing bombardment and the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza contrast sharply with the northern ceasefire, assuming it lasts. And Biden's efforts to secure a truce in Gaza face resistance, oddly, from Hamas and skepticism from Israel. The skepticism, I understand. The hostility from Hamas, given their current position, well, maybe the issue is they've got nothing to lose. And the ceasefire now in Lebanon allows Israel to redirect its military resources to Gaza, and Netanyahu's strategy is clearly to isolate Hamas further by removing Hezbollah's active support. The impact for Iran is that Hezbollah is severely weakened, losing both operational and symbolic strength, and Iran's regional influence, therefore, is dented as its first line of defense falters. So the question really is whether Iran will double down on proxy warfare elsewhere to compensate. And will this see Iran increase its support, for example, to Russia or to the Houthis? Hezbollah's weakened status opens up opportunities for its opponents, but it risks internal conflict, and the power vacuum now left in southern Lebanon needs to be filled by the Lebanese as quickly as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid another formation of the terrorist regime of Hezbollah will undoubtedly take over. There are in terms of the durability of this ceasefire, there are risks. There are risks of violations, as heightened by Netanyahu's firm stance on responding to Hezbollah breaches should they occur. There's the long-term stability hinges on the success of the Lebanese army deployment and sustained international monitoring. And meanwhile, Biden's limited windows to secure a ceasefire in Gaza before leaving office is certainly an attractive opportunity. And should he get the support of Egypt, Qatar and Turkey, then he may well be able to mediate effectively where others have failed so far in this conflict. But this deal showcases the possibility that diplomacy in the region could help to solve the problems rather than further war. But of course, if this proves to be simply a tactical pause, it is the worst of all worlds. The role of the incoming Trump administration in sustaining or undermining these efforts is significant. This is a fragile ceasefire, and however you look upon it, it is a contrast to the ongoing war in Gaza. But it might also be a blueprint for peace or for a temporary reprieve. Biden's words, peace is possible, the alliteration, the hope. But the question remains whether the region itself is ready to embrace that opportunity.